Ben and Me, Chapter 1, I, Amos. Since the recent death of my lamented friend and patron Ben Franklin, many so-called historians have attempted to write accounts of his life and his achievements. Most of these are wrong in so many respects that I feel the time has now come for me to take pen and paw and set things right. All of these ill-informed scribblers seem astonished at Ben's great fund of information, at his brilliant decisions, at his seeming knowledge of all that went on about him. Had they asked me, I could have told them. It was me. For many years I was his closest friend and adviser, and, if I do say it, was in great part responsible for his success and fame. Not that I wish to claim too much, I simply hope to see justice done, credit given where credit is due, and that's, to me, mostly. Ben was undoubtedly a splendid fellow, a great man, a patriot and all that, but he was undeniably stupid at times, and had it not been for me, well, here's the true story, and you could judge for yourself. I was the oldest of 26 children. My parents, in naming us, went right through the alphabet. I, being first, was Amos. The others went along through Bathsheba, Claude, Daniel, and so forth down to the babies, Xenophon, Isabel, and Zenas. We lived in the vestry of the old Christ Church on 2nd Street in Philadelphia, behind the paneling. With the number of mouths to feed, we were naturally not a very prosperous family. In fact, we were really quite poor as church mice. But it was not until the hard winter of 1745 that things really became desperate. That was a winter long to be remembered for its severity, and night after night my poor father would come in tired, wet, with his little sack practically empty. We were driven to eating prayer books, and when those gave out we took to the minister's sermons. That was, for me, the final straw. The prayer books were tough, but those sermons. Being the oldest, it seemed fitting that I should go out into the world and make my own way. Perhaps I could in some way help the others. At least, it left one less to be provided for. So, saying farewell to all of them, my mother and father, and all the children from Bathsheba to Zenas, I set forth on the coldest, windiest night of a cold and windy winter. Little did I dream, at that moment, of all the strange people and experiences I should encounter before ever I returned to that little vestry home. Page 4. All I thought of were my cold paws, my empty stomach, and those sermons. I have never known how far I traveled that night, for what with the cold and hunger, I must have become slightly delirious. The first thing I remember clearly was being in the kitchen and smelling cheese. It didn't take long to find it. It was only a bit of rind and fairly dry, but how I ate it. Refreshed by this, my first real meal in many a day, I began to explore the house. It was painfully bare, clean, but bare. Very little furniture, and that all hard and shiny, no soft things or dusty corners where a chap could curl up and have a good warm nap. It was cold, too, almost as cold as the outdoors. Upstairs were 2 rooms. One was dark, and from it came in the sound of snoring. The other had a light and the sound of sneezing. I chose the sneezy one. In a large chair close to the fireplace sat a short, thick, round-faced man trying to write by the light of a candle. Every few moments he would sneeze, and his square-rimmed glasses would fly off. Reaching for these, he would drop his pen. By the time he found that and got settled to write, the candle, page 6, would flicker from the drought. When that calmed down, the sneezing would start again, and so it went. He was not accomplishing much in the way of writing. Of course, I recognized him. Everyone in Philadelphia knew that the great Dr. Benjamin Franklin, scientist, inventor, printer, editor, author, soldier, statesman, and philosopher. He didn't look great or famous that night, though. He just looked cold and a bit silly. He was wrapped in a sort of dressing gown with dirty fur collar, and on his head was perched an odd-looking fur cap. The cap interested me for a while, for I was still chilled to the bone, and this room was just as bleak as the rest of the house. It was a rather disreputable disreputable-looking affair, that cap, but in one side of it I had spied a hole just about my size. Up the back of the chair I went, and under cover for the next fit of the sneezes, in I slid. What a cozy place that was! Plenty of room to move about a bit, just enough air, such soft fur and such warmth. Here, I said to myself, is my home. No more cold streets or cellars or vestries. Here I stay. At that moment, of course, I never realized how true this was to prove. All I realized was that I was warm, well fed, and oh, so sleepy. And so to bed.